After a bus trip the other day that can best be described as unpleasant, and other things that I will not go into, I decided to review a random steam locomotive and train simulator in an effort to ease my mind. In the end, I selected the Caledonian Railway 498 class, a little 060 tank engine brought to TS by Caledonia Works. As for why I've been doing so many CW reviews lately, it's because I think I can rely on this developer for consistently high quality products, and rely on said products to be the basis of more positive videos than, for a completely random example, my reviews of West Cornwall Local and the other Rivet Games rubbish in Train Sim World, not to mention the South African routes in Train Simulator as well. The 498 class was released for TS in January 2019. 6 years later, she is still available from CW's website for £15, or $32.96 NZD, at full price. Before we get to what's included in the pack, I'll go over a brief history of this class. The 498 class was designed by John F. McIntosh for dock shunting, with 23 examples built at St. Rollick's Works between 1911 and 1921. At some point, these engines earned the nickname Beetle Crusher. I suspect it was due to their strength or prominent cylinders, but I could be wrong. In any case, the first two members of this class were numbers 498 and 499, but the rest were numbered between 502 and 538. But that numbering was not consecutive. The entire class became part of the London, Midland and Scottish Railways fleet upon the grouping in 1923, and in those days, the engines were numbered from 16151 through to 16173, later 56151 to 56173. Locomotive number 510 was notable for apparently being driven by a Polish immigrant, who presumably worked for the Caledonian Railway. This particular engine was decked out with special embellishments, including a Polish eagle, at least I think that's what it is, under the front buffer beam. After joining the LMS in 1923, she would be renumbered to 16168 and repainted in a run-of-the-mill LMS black livery. Although the 498s were only given a power rating of 2F under the LMS and British Railways, they were still powerful for their size, with a boiler pressure of 160 psi and a tractive effort of 18,015 pounds force. All 23 members of this class survived into British Railways ownership upon nationalisation in 1948. They remained in service for at least another decade, with the first withdrawal taking place in 1958, and the final example not being withdrawn until 1962. Sadly, but not unlike most Caledonian Railway classes, such as the two that you can see here, none of the Beetle Crushers have survived into preservation. As for what you get with the 498 class in Train Simulator, we'll start off with the liveries, which are as follows. Caledonian Railway lined goods black, with a special variant for 510. LMS pre-1927 black. LMS pre-1927 Crimson Lake. LMS post-1927 black. British Railways Transitional, with Gill Sans lettering, BR Black, with the early crest, and BR Black with the late crest. I think my favourite livery in this pack is either the Caledonian Railway Goods Black, LMS Crimson Lake, or BR Black with the late crest. None of the 498s ever carried LMS Crimson Lake in real life, so my guess is that this livery was included with the pack just for a bit of fun. Meanwhile, all of the LMS Black and BR Black liveries come with weathered estates too. These could be useful in scenarios set during the engine's final days of service, or just at a time when the engine's been working really hard and hasn't been cleaned in ages. The early crest and late crest variants of BR Black also have a variant with a stovepipe chimney. I prefer the look of the original lipped chimney myself, but each to their own. The Beetle Crusher's features are not as advanced as more recent CW products. Case in point, the Linear P1 class, but they're still pretty good for an add-on released in 2019. Incidentally, the P1 is the newest add-on in CW's range at the time of this video's production. The list of features on the 498 includes, but is not limited to, numerous cab camera views, custom Caledonian and LMS lamps, dynamic smoke particles, animated brake rigging, although the animation is pretty subtle, fully modelled 3D firebox, and, as always, performance mode, which is toggled on or off by pressing Shift P. Presumably due to the less advanced scripting, the 498 doesn't feature a functioning reversal lock. Thinking back to the lamps, these can be arranged by pressing Ctrl 1 for the smokebox lamp iron, Ctrl 2 and Ctrl 3 for the cab sides, and Ctrl 4 for the lamp iron on the bunker. LMS and BR variants have slightly different lamp positions. I know that the lack of lamp irons on the front buffer beam was typical Cali practice, but I don't know why they did it this way. Something I noticed while on the footplate was just how cramped it looks and feels. I can only imagine what it would have been like to work on one of these locomotives in real life. Incidentally, the 498's footplate reminds me of the New Zealand Railway's F-Class, another 060 tank engine whose cabs are not particularly spacious, to say the least. I didn't realise this until I started making this review, but I can't help thinking that the Beetle Crusher looks a bit like a precursor to the LMS 2F dock tank. Incidentally, and if my research is correct, the 498 was one of only two 060 classes designed by Macintosh. The other one was the 782 class of 1896. While on the topic of Scottish 060s, the 498 also reminds me of the preserved Glasgow and South Western Railway tank engine number 9. The manual has details on all the keyboard controls for the 498 class, but no specific instructions on how to drive this locomotive. Due to the lack of any Beetle Crushers in preservation, the sounds for this add-on were, instead, recorded from other preserved Caledonian engines, namely the 439 class 044 tank number 419 and 812 class 060 number 828. Incidentally, I'm still using the original 812 model because I am yet to buy the new one, released in September 2024. Incidentally, the Beetle Crusher comes with scenarios for 3 routes, namely Western Lines of Scotland, the Esthwaite branch, and the Crabbenmore branch. WLOS is a payware route that you can buy from Steam, while Esthwaite was a freeware route that you could get from UK Train Sim. As for the Crabbenmore branch, that is another freeware route, albeit one that is still available on Steam Workshop. Details on the other DLC required for the 498 scenarios are in a README file included with the download. Although this class is better suited for shunting, and despite the real things never receiving Westinghouse air pumps, I sometimes like to run the TS versions on short-distance passenger services anyway. An ideal section for this sort of run is the branch line from Castle Douglas to Kirkcudbright, which is included on the Western Lines of Scotland route. The branch is only around 11 miles long, and doesn't have any particularly steep grades. During my tests with these engines, I found them fairly easy to drive, although most of the time they were steaming well enough for the safety valves to be constantly blowing off. When you're coupling up to other rolling stock, it's best to not go any faster than around 2 miles per hour as you're approaching. And due to their limited coal and water capacity, of 2 tons and 1,000 gallons respectively, the 498s are not suitable for long distance running. Out of curiosity, I did a speed test with locomotive number 529 between Gretna Green and East Riggs, on one of the flatter sections of the Western Lines of Scotland route. And during this run, I couldn't get this engine to go any faster than 34 miles per hour, which is understandable given that this thing's not really meant to do anything more than shunting. Although the 498 class is kind of lagging behind more recent CW products where the features are concerned, I've still had fun revisiting this little tank engine. Based on how much content you get in this pack, I think £15 is a reasonable price, and can confidently recommend the Caledonian Railway 498 class to TS Classic players who like UK steam locomotives. I think this little tank engine deserves a 7.2 out of 10.